Hello and welcome to another episode of Fire 5 at Phoenix. It's a lovely, really sunny spring day today, and I am joined by the lovely, sunny Jules Hellens. Jules, thank you for joining me today. I'm going to get Jules to introduce herself in just a second. But I'm Zoe from Phoenix Life and Wellbeing Coaching. This is our regular podcast slot. So we're going live every week with a different topic. Each month has a topic, and then each week we go live with a new guest. So Jules is here today. We are the last week of March, so this is our last week talking about mindset, and as we go into a new month we will have a new topic to talk through. But before we go into the questions, Jules, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us who you are and a little bit about you.
Hi Zoe, thank you so much. Yes, my name is Jules Hellens. I am a woman's wellbeing life coach. I focus on health, happiness and the menopause journey, but not exclusively the menopause journey. I work mainly with women who feel lost or stuck mentally, emotionally and physically. And I work with them through a specific bespoke step-by-step journey program, using the very powerful combination of life coaching, cognitive behavioral therapy and positive psychology. And it just takes them on a journey and they come out the other side living a healthier, happier life, mentally, emotionally and physically. And that is mainly the menopause. A lot of the women I coach are going through the menopause because it is a time of the life where we're going through change mentally, emotionally and physically. And some women just need some non-medical help to just find their way through the menopause so that they can find themselves again and reclaim their identity and live the life that they so absolutely deserve to live, but may have just lost along the way because of one thing or another.
And it's so nice, isn't it, that the menopause is being talked about so much more openly now. I mean, I've spoken to different companies who run workshops, not just for the female staff, but also for all of the staff in the company to understand what their colleagues or partners or people at home are working their way through. But I think also, as you just touched upon there, it's that stage of life, isn't it, of when, if you have children, your children are growing up and going off on their own path. And so that creates a change. There's lots of elements in that time, isn't there, where you take a bit of a step back and think, right, okay, it's not the halfway point, but there's a significant change here. And you get to look forward and start to make different choices. And if, having a coach to support you through that is so powerful. So thank you for your time today. We will pop Jules's links in, so if you would like to find out a little bit more and have a look to see what Jules does and connect with her on social media, because she puts lots of really useful information out there, do check her out and have a look. So Jules is joining me today with 5 questions on the topic of mindset. I have not seen these questions, so if you haven't tuned into these before, I don't get to see the questions in advance. I think it helps enable just a very sort of intuitive conversation around what comes up, and it also makes it very topical as well of things that are happening in the world at the moment, and hopefully within the answers and within the conversation that we have, there is something in there that is of use to you. So as I said, these come out weekly. Like, share, subscribe. If we're talking about things that you think might help somebody that do please feel free to share that with them. So Jules, do you want to start with the first question?
Yeah, I'm starting simple. And I'm sort of focusing in on the positive mindset, if that's okay with Zoe. And just to ask you very simply, what is meant by having a positive mindset? Because I think as coaches, we hear people talk about mindset all the time. I mean, it's part of our vocabulary. But I think for lots of people out there, actually, mindset might not be something that they've even contemplated or thought about. So I'd really like to know your views on what is meant by having a positive mindset.
So interestingly, I've seen articles recently about positive mindset overdone, so that sort of drive to have a positive mindset when it's not in balance can be quite toxic for people. So I think that's really, really interesting in having that balance. The line I approach with is finding the positives within a situation. So not necessarily feeling that you need to see the whole situation as positive, because let's face it, not every situation is positive, but there will be some positive elements within that, or there will be some learning within that, or there will be some growth within that. And I think from my perspective, that's where I look for me, but also for the people that I work with, is looking at, okay, what positives can we draw out from this, because that helps you to see the bigger picture. We talk about the negative bias of, naturally we look and see and focus and reflect and spend lots of time on the negative. I mean, nobody is an overthinker on positive things, are they? Nobody spends at 3 o'clock in the morning overthinking all of the positive things that have happened that day. So actually being able to, learn to pull out the positives, learn to reflect on the positives and balance that out, but not completely dismissing the negatives that are in there, because that's where we learn, that's where we grow, but also that's how we identify what action needs to be taken, if any. We can't dismiss it, but it is, I think for me, it's about pulling the positives out. I wrote a blog a couple of years ago because somebody once said to me that my relentless positivity was quite draining, which I was, at the time I was like, wow, okay, there's a compliment in there and there's something else in there. Like, what does that mean? And I think what I have learned over the years is that it's very easy as a second person, whether coach or friend or family member, to kind of swoop in and go, look on the bright side, and what about this, but this is okay. Whereas actually it is really important to acknowledge and to give people that space to spend some time thinking about the negatives and feeling the emotions that come with the negatives before we move into that sort of pulling out the positives. So I think I've learned to balance that a lot better over the last couple of years. But it's interesting when that was said to me, I was like, wow, how can that be a bad thing? I'm cool with that. That's who I am. And then I took some time out and thought, actually, I can, to be on the receiving end of that, if that's not who you are and you are somebody who wants to spend time and explore all the negatives, actually it's okay to do that, and it has its place.
Yeah, I completely agree. Everything you say, I think there's a lot of pressure to be positive sometimes, particularly on social media, and it's draining. And I completely agree. This is what I've learned personally for myself, is actually because I am a positive person, and I do put myself under pressure to go from negative through to the positive very quickly without sitting with the negative and going, actually, I'm feeling this for a reason. And I think with my clients, it's about exploring what it is that's going on within the negative, as you said. It's really powerful. It's that balance, isn't it, between the two, because positivity does attract positivity, but also we can't be positive all the time. It's too draining.
It takes a lot of energy, doesn't it? Because it's not the natural human response to not, the human response is to see the negative, because that's where the risk is. That's how we stay safe. Your fight, flight and freeze is all about looking for that risk. So we don't want to not have that. We also don't want to stay in that zone. We want to be able to move forward. But that pace is going to be different for different people, isn't it? People are going to want to sit with it a little bit longer. But I think sometimes the risk when it's not in balance is to try and move out of that as quickly as possible and not spending time on it, which then, in my experience, means that you increase the likelihood of repetition of response or repetition of patterns of behavior that aren't helpful, or you suppress those emotions that actually we need to spend some time we need to allow some of these emotions to come through and explore them and work out what they call them out for what they are, and then move forward. But it's that rush, isn't it, to get to, I will feel happy, I will find the bright side of this.
Yeah. I mean, and our primitive mind, as you said, it's there to help us.
Yeah.
It's there to actually save us. It's just our primitive mind hasn't caught up with the modern world. So we do still sit within the negativity, but it's about finding those strategies and techniques, isn't it, of moving on and not being stuck there within that pattern or that habit, as you've just said. And that's where the clients come to us to self-reflect, to understand, and then once you do that, you can then move forward.
Yeah. And you find out that people try and they know where it is they want to get to, and sometimes it's not a 100-meter sprint to get there as fast as possible. Actually, sometimes a slower walk and work it through has its benefits. So yeah, absolutely.
And it's okay to be sad. When something sad happens, it's okay. And in actual fact, you go through that sadness, I think it delays the grief or the reaction, and it will just come back to you at some point. 6 months down the line, years down the line.
I think we can be quite dismissive of those negative emotions because they're uncomfortable, but they are they equally have purpose. They have purpose equally. They equally have purpose to as much as those positive emotions. It's just they're uncomfortable, but uncomfortable is very much needed.
Yeah,
very much needed.
It is.
Great first question.
So the next question, really, because we've talked about negative and how important negativity is actually, because that helps us to learn, it helps us to move forward and understand ourselves. But obviously, a positive mindset is important. So why is it that a positive mindset is important? What is the importance of balancing those two out and not just staying in the negative?
So I think it's what we really have just been talking about, isn't it? Of that being able to balance, being able to experience and allow ourselves and acknowledge those emotions on both sides, because that's part of life's journey, isn't it? It's part of, I had this conversation with somebody last week, and we said, life is, I think it was on the live with Jim last week, and we talked about life being a roller coaster.
Yeah.
I promised him I wouldn't sing Ronan Keaton then, and I promised that I won't sing it now. But it is full of ups and downs. But that's, there's lots of quotes out there, isn't there, that you have to experience the downs to be able to appreciate and feel grateful for the ups. It's what gives life variety, and I think it is important, to recognize that nobody goes through life without experiencing negative or without experiencing positive. Life is a good mix of both, and it's being able to see and reflect and take the learning and the growth from both of those. And I don't think it's healthy to be stuck in either. I think everything is about balance, about seeing the positive and the negative, about the way we approach life needs balance. Everything, so much of life is about balance. We talk about balance, home and work-life balance, but even just in our own behaviours, having those in balance to the situation that we're in and what's needed. And I don't think life is about one or the other. It's about learning to weigh up the two and be able to move backwards and forwards between the two.
But I suppose there are people that get stuck in the negative. And I suppose sometimes when you're stuck in that negative, you don't realise you're stuck there.
Yeah.
It's a pattern and a behaviour. So it's about how to recognise that, how to move forward into the positive, and actually recognise being positive balance is just as good, isn't it? And to make an intentional, conscious effort,
Yes.
actually, and that you might not feel the positivity maybe.
Yeah.
It's that intention, isn't it, to move there to balance.
Yeah. The challenge is that when we, and I know you will have this with people that you work with as well, that our brain registers when a response is useful. So, we probably have lots of conversations with people where the brain has registered that worrying about something or preparing for the worst possible case scenario or thinking ahead of all of the possibilities has been useful. And so when we recognize that something is useful and it's works, our brain registers that. And so that then we repeat, and that then especially when things aren't working, we tend to do things, harder, faster, rather than taking a step back and thinking, okay, that didn't work. So rather than just do that 10 times more, 10 times harder, faster, and put more into it, let me just take a step back and think about what other ways I could tackle this. And so, when the brain, it's that double whammy, isn't it? The brain registers that something worked, and so we keep repeating that, but then we're also worrying ahead, and that negative bias, we remember all the times we didn't do that and it didn't work, which then piles it on even more. So it's just that repetition of something that has worked for us in the past but isn't working for us now, and being able to step back from that and then having that trust to try something different. And I think that's sometimes where I think the coaching support comes in very handy, in that reassurance and the support and guidance to try something different and try a different approach.
And I think that is just so beautifully said, Zoe. I think it sums it up, particularly as our role as a coach is to enable people to move out of that stuck place.
Yeah.
For them, to enable them, because we're not there to give advice.
Yeah.
We're there to enable people to recognise what's keeping them stuck, and then enabling them to identify different ways, different options of moving out of that stuckness. And sometimes that just needs them to have that permission with us as a coach. And I just sit there and just ask the questions that make sense for them, because they can't see it. But as coaches, we quite often can, or we can enable them to find their way.
That's the great thing as a coach, isn't it? Is we're not sitting with their emotions, and we are sitting outside of the thing that they are stuck in. So we see a bigger picture without the emotions that they hold on to, and we see things very differently. And I think that's, one of the things I love about coaching is being able to help someone to walk around their problem and see things from different perspectives. And that moment when they go, oh, I could try that. Yeah, that could really work. And then having them talk it through and explore the possibilities in a really safe space, to be able to walk it through, work it through, and give themselves the confidence, find the confidence in themselves to go and try something different.
Yeah, and I think that is just, it's that looking for the different solutions, because we quite often, when we're stuck in a place, we can't see those solutions because our mind is just and when you've got someone who's judging you, you've got someone, like you say, you haven't got the emotional brain engaged, you're just observing, enabling to give that feedback through observation. It's just wonderful. We've talked about this before, but it's just wonderful to watch, isn't it? It's so powerful. And when you see clients have that light bulb moment, and then you can see their whole face just light up. It feels very positive.
I think that's one of my favorite bits of coaching, isn't it? Of just, I know it's the same for you because we've had this conversation before, but it's that moment, and we're not bought into the outcome. So when you walk around the problem with them and they look at the different options and solutions, we are not bought in or tied in or have any interest in, not we do have a supportive interest, but we don't have that attachment to what that outcome is. So every option is an option. We're not excluding anything with them. So it's that freedom, isn't it? The freedom without judgment to be able to explore and walk around things. So I can't even remember what the question was now.
We're just doing the positive thing again, that positive mindset, and how important it is to develop if you're stuck in that place of negativity.
Yeah.
Because it's become a habit and it's worked for you, and not you, Zoe, but people in the past, they're stuck there. And so it kind of leads on to my next question, really, is for those people that are stuck in the negative, because it's become a habit, a pattern, and they want to balance it out with some positivity and develop a positive mindset. What kind of strategies and tools can they implement potentially to enable them to have a more positive outlook? And I know we're all so unique. What works for one person might not work for someone else, and that's where the options come in. But are there any tools and techniques that you think work well with your clients?
So I'll talk through something that I have talked through with somebody very recently, just because it's fresh in my mind. And that was when we talk about creating new habits, new behaviours, it's always helpful to attach them to an existing habit or an existing behaviour. And one thing we do without even thinking about it is we clean our teeth in the morning and we clean our teeth in the evening. So this was with a younger client. So trying to keep things simple, trying to keep things nice and easy. And so something she is now trying is her cleaning her teeth is now her positive space. So it's that so in the morning she talks in her head, so she has that thinking time while she's cleaning her teeth of all of the things that she appreciates, all the things that she's grateful for, and also starting to introduce things that other people love in her that she is learning to love in herself. So that's and what her underlying rule is: when I'm cleaning my teeth, I am really trying to focus on saying things that I love about myself and things that I love about my life. So that's her morning teeth clean. And then in the evening, what she's been doing is reflecting on the day of her wins and successes. So when she cleans her teeth in the evening, rather than what a lot of us very easily can do is think about all the things that didn't go to plan or the things that haven't worked, that's her positive space. So she thinks about things that have gone well, things that she's responded to well, things that her little wins and her little successes from that day. So it tops and tails the morning and evening. We've attached it to a pre-existing routine, so it's starting, hopefully will start to become part of, from the conscious into the unconscious, and it's that re-anchoring that teeth clean as that's her positive space. And then hopefully that will help throughout the day as well, of recognizing because what we want to do, isn't it, is to help people to feel uncomfortable when they have those negative thoughts. So they want to be able to challenge it and change it. So we've started with the teeth cleaning, and when she's comfortable that's working well, then we can look at introducing something else. But I think the top and tail at the end of the day works for a lot of people. I mean, in the Phoenix planner journal, that's in there, the gratitudes, appreciations in the morning, wins and successes in the evening. And I know a lot of people do affirmations, don't they? Positive affirmations, but don't always do the evening looking at the wins and successes. And I think that's, when if you have a tendency to overthink, and that's, we overthink when we don't have all of the answers. So we try and think of all of the possibilities. There's some strength in that when it's in balance, because we look outside the obvious picture, don't we? But when it's not in balance, it becomes overthinking, and that feels negative for people. So adding some structure into, okay, I'm going to overthink this, so I'm going to put some structure in so that I think things through in a way that is helpful for me, but doesn't become overdone and become a negative.
I mean, I find most of the clients I work with are all so unique. We're all so different, and in actual fact, what works for one doesn't always work for someone else. I mean, I've got some clients. I use a journal as part of my program, and it's based on positive psychology. And they use positive psychology journal, and some of them love it. They absolutely love it, and they do it step by step, activity and exercise. And others actually that goes.
You know, it's not been touched.
They much prefer to talk things through verbally rather than writing it down. So we go through it in session together, and it fascinates me how different, and it's recognizing, isn't it? And as a coach, adapting to the way that your clients learn and the way they take information on board and doing it differently. But I really like that morning. I really like routine and I really like structure. But I was doing a group session on self-care the other day, and there were some ladies that really didn't like routine and structure because they found it a chore and boring. So in actual fact, it's about, let's find an alternative way of introducing it into your day then.
Yeah.
I like routine. So for me, it's quite easy to do something in the morning and then something in the evening. That fit really well. It does fit really well with me. But for some people, it's. I've got another lady who likes to talk into an app and talk about her day, her wins, gratitude, and then she'll go back the next day and listen to it. So,
okay.
Yeah.
You know, that's it, isn't it? There isn't a one size that fits all. There's the elements in it that we're trying to help people find a way that works for them to pull out those elements, but ultimately that could be very, very different for different people. And sometimes it's trial and error, isn't it? Sometimes like, okay, well, they want to take something away and try it, and you speak to them in the next session like, that did not work. So what else are the options? And just, you know, it's finding ways to help them. You know, I think that's the underlying the sort of underlying, I'm trying to think of what the word is, but with, you know, the coaching philosophy, if you like, is that the individual has the resources, has the answers, has what they need within them. Our role is just to help them untap that, tune into it, and help make it work for them. So, you know, that's why we don't give the answers. That's why we explore it with them and work it through with them. So that's why, you know, it isn't a one size fits all. We just have to help them find their answer to their question from their pool of resources.
Yeah, but it's an interesting sort of move towards positivity, because therapy is always focused on what was wrong, and then positive psychology came in, and there was that element of now focusing on what's good. But even positive psychology has now recognised, yes, that's great. Gratitude is a big part of positive psychology, but in actual fact, they're even recognising it's not about dismissing what's wrong. It's just about knowing how to sit within the positive, and also make that, you know that that's a great place to be. You might go back to the negative, sit there, but you know how to then move back into the positive, because you've got the tools, techniques that you've developed that work for you.
I think also from my experience, and I guess from my perspective, is that in that negative, that's quite often what shapes that, you know, shapes the experiences, it shapes character. We learn things about ourselves in those negative times. We learn what we're capable of, we learn how we respond and approach things. And so for me, it's about taking from the negative and putting it into the positive of how can you use this proactively, positively in your future days, weeks, months and years. You know, how can you use this in a positive way. So sometimes it's about that mindset shift, and sometimes it's, the more sort of logistics. How do you take what you learn in the negative and use it in a positive way to help you move forward? And I that's for me is one, again, another powerful conversation in sessions, when you say, okay, that's, you can see that this was a terrible thing that they've experienced, but helping them to see how they can take that experience and use it in a positive way, and use it in a way to help them to move forward. And I think sometimes that's the positive, isn't it? Is just moving them away from and towards where they want to go. And that in itself is the positive.
It is, and you said the word mindset shift, and that's what it is, isn't it? So that you're not staying stuck in a place, and it's having that ability to have that mindset shift and that self-awareness. A lot of it is about self-understanding, isn't it? That sense of self. And when we get to know who we are, and we understand who we are and how we work in this world, I think it's much easier to apply a lot of these strategies and techniques, because we know ourselves so well. And sometimes we're there again, aren't we? Particularly through CBT and NLP, is enabling people to understand who they really are. And I know this is used a lot, but understand that who their authentic selves. And I know, again, that's a word used a lot in coaching, but it's true, isn't it? Yeah. So when you really truly understand who you are, and that's a lifelong journey, it never ends, but you can understand what works and what doesn't work. So that takes you out of that place.
I am, like you said, it is, and there isn't an end to that journey. That's a constant. I had a lovely conversation with a young client recently, and she said, she talked about how she is becoming very aware that who she is very much shaped so far by her parents and the experiences that she's had, and that question around, how do I know who I am? How do I know what my authentic self is? And I said, that's a great question. You let me know when you find the answer, because I am years ahead of you and I'm still working that out, because I think that's a lifelong journey, isn't it, of really understanding, who you want to be and who you want to become, and that changes and evolves. And I think flow, that's probably, I don't know whether that's the right word, but not trying to force it, of just rolling with it and being open to different experiences that will probably shape who you are and what you know about yourself and what you know about the world. And that doesn't end at 18, it doesn't end at 21 or 30 or these crazy numbers that people throw out there. I think it's that ever changing evolution, isn't it? And I think that sometimes is the authentic self, that you'll have your values, your core values, and things that that fundamentally they will not change. They might shape, I went from achievement to continuous improvement. It's kind of the same thing, but it's slightly different. The focus on it has changed maybe. We have values that sit with us throughout, and that's part of that core part of ourselves. But that change and evolution and learning and growth and all of those other things, that doesn't end, I don't think.
And in actual fact, if you open yourself up to it, you can enjoy it. It's actually a journey to be enjoyed, because there is so much to understand. Curiosity, the big part of going across this psychology, it's just massive, isn't it? To be curious about other people. That's why we're doing what we're doing, because I'm so curious about human behaviour and the way people work and finding solutions. But it's just the joy. If you can see the joy in the journey rather than the negativity in the journey, is massive. And I think for women going through menopause, sometimes they go through life knowing who they are, and sometimes when you go through the menopause years, you lose that knowledge a little bit. So you just need a little bit more guidance to get yourself back on track, and maybe go slightly down a different path, or maybe the same path. But
our roles change, don't they, when we get to that sort of that age group? So for men as well, that sort of 40s, 50s age group, the roles that we are in change, don't they? So if we're parents, the dynamic of parent-child relationship changes. If you for long-term relationships or new relationships, that dynamic changes. The things that we love to do and how we spend our time, roles in work, there is quite a shift in there, isn't there? And I think, like you said at the beginning, helping people to understand who they are at core means that actually these changes that are external it's not that it's not that they're not important or they don't influence, but you feel like you're on a steady ground going through those changes rather than things happening to you that keep shifting and changing you and who you are and what you're about. So it's just external changes that you can flow with, morph around a little bit more than rather than I don't know who I am or what's happening. This is not comfortable. So I think that is that authentic core bit, isn't it?
It is, and I think because we maybe lose, or when you talk to clients about values, the majority of people wouldn't have even have thought about what their values are, and it's so important to us. It's our core belief. It's so important to how we live our life. If we align ourselves to our values, that just brings positivity in itself, doesn't it? Because then you are in harmony with your values. And so therefore that just, I can fight against my values all this time because society's told me I've got to be earning loads of money, but actually that goes against my values.
Yeah. I had a message yesterday from somebody who said, I found this job and it's in total alignment with my values. And I was like, wow, I love that. I love the fact that you're looking at potential jobs, potential career change around who you are and what you want and what's in alignment for you, rather than, it's in this industry or it's this type of role or it's this amount of money. So I love that. And I think that's the thing, is that we do values. I'm not do it with one-to-one clients, but we do it on Thrive. It's one of the weeks is our values. Sort of sense of purpose, and there's people on the program that are in varying age groups, and so many of them say I've never sat down and reflected and thought about this, and now certain things and why certain things didn't feel comfortable or why certain things were not working. Now it makes sense.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because some people can just come up with their 5 top values just like that, and then other people get really lost in their values or what it is that they want or what they don't have, but that creates a really interesting conversation, because quite often you can get to the core of what it is they want by them not knowing what their values are, if that makes sense. It's just another route in to understanding what it is that we want from life, but we haven't really understood because we've never really tried all these different avenues. And I don't know for you, Zoe, quite often I get a lot of ladies who come to me who think their problem is that they want to lose weight, or it's this or it's that, but in actual fact we quite often never address the problem they originally came with, because when you dig a lot deeper, it's actually another issue that they've not wanted to address. So a lot of avoidance goes on, and then quite often they'll go at the end of addressing the issue that they didn't realise was an issue, will then suddenly discover, I've lost weight. I haven't even talked about losing weight.
It's I don't know, I quite often say it's very rarely the first thing people come to you with. Most of the time is two or three layers underneath that, and sometimes that can come through quite quickly, and other times it takes a little longer. But I think when you peel back those layers, and it's that safe space to peel it back and explore it, and know that this isn't about ripping the plaster off and then leaving people to go away and heal or work it all out. It's about, okay, let's peel the layer back and work through it, and we won't take off the next layer until you are ready to explore what's underneath that, and very much doing it at their pace and in a way they feel comfortable with. And but you're right, it's very, very rarely the first thing. It's always something, and quite often values being out of alignment is one of those things. Yeah. Whether it's they're unhappy in work, unhappy in a relationship, unhappy, stuck, frustrated, overwhelmed, quite often the needs are not being met, or the values are out of alignment. Put money on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of, you want to tell the world, don't you?
This. Yeah.
Come and see us.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not for everyone, is it? I mean, I have a lady asked me a question recently, does this take up a lot of time? And yes, actually, because to make change, you need to put effort in, and that means commitment.
Yeah.
And not that quick fix. Actually, it needs commitment, needs you women, in my case, take responsibility and work.
Yeah.
There's work in between each session, and there's work after our sessions. It's a lifelong. So it's about finding that time, isn't it? That to actually put that into your day so that you can carry on after they finish coaching with us. It's just that self-care.
Yeah. It's not a drop in and drop out 1 hour at a set routine. And that's certainly conversations I have, in those initial calls, is, it requires some emotional investment into you wanting to change, you wanting to, because we've, quite often we know what we need to do, but we can't make it happen, or we feel like we want to do something, but again, making it happen is a whole different question, isn't it? So it's about checking in, from my perspective, is checking in that they have that emotional investment to do what needs to be done, and put the mental and physical energy into it to make it happen. So they have to really want it, and then they also have to have that mental and physical energy to invest into being able to make it happen. And I very much work with very small changes. I'm focused on making small, consistent changes that are sustainable, that are easy to make, but that still takes some effort and energy. It doesn't just magically happen. People need to be signed up for that. And coaching is an investment. It is a financial investment, but actually the mental, physical investment is just as much. And I think it's not just about, do you want to invest in making these changes and have that support to do it? Actually, are you ready? Because even the best coach in the world still not going to turn up. And the analogy I use is I'm in the passenger seat. I'm here to support, to guide, to help you, but I'm not switching on the engine. I'm not driving this. This is on you. So we can sit here and I can sit in the car and have lots and lots of conversations with you, but ultimately, if you don't turn the ignition on and put your foot on the accelerator, even if it's only a little squeeze, we're going nowhere, and we'll be in the same position at the end of however many sessions. So we can go slow. We don't even need to come out of first gear, but we do need to take the handbrake off. We do need to start the engine, and we do need to, even if we're kangarooing, that's cool. We can do that, but we do need to be moving forward.
I like that analogy, because sometimes the car can stop, and you might need to just reconnect and reflect before you can then start the engine again and start moving forward, because maybe that direction didn't quite work. So you might need to stop and actually take the other fork in the road.
Yeah, and just look at what that first step needs to be. The first step may feel like it's going into first gear, but actually the first step might just be taking the handbrake off. It's, if that first step feels too much, let's go back a little bit, and what's the step before that? Does that feel possible? And explore what is possible, and then the encouragement and support to find ways to make it happen.
But what you were saying earlier, Zoe, that we offer, an hour introductory session because, and you said sometimes that can be enough. Actually,
Yeah.
not everyone. Some people can just go, whoa, actually, and some ladies, even though I offer 6 sessions as part of the program, they might do 4 and 5 and go, actually, this is pretty good. Or I might leave the last one and come back to you in the future and keep it in hand. Because, and yet other ladies need longer than 6 sessions.
Yeah, it's very individual, isn't it?
Very, very individual. I
Yeah,
forgot where we are with the questions.
but you're right. Those initial calls, sometimes you just, you ask a question, and you just ask the right question at the right time, which gets them to think about things a little bit differently, and suddenly they see something might be possible that they hadn't seen before, and that was all they needed. And you don't see or hear from them again. Or you hear from them to say, this happened after the call, I'm all good, but I will come back to you if things change. And that's great, isn't it? Just if only we could help everybody in an hour, it would make a huge difference, wouldn't it? So, but it is very tailored to that individual, isn't it?
So I think I'm on the 4th question. Did I ask you, once we have developed these strategies, when something terrible happens, we can be inclined to go back into our old habits, our old behaviours. Are there any suggestions how we can maintain that positive mindset, or those strategies, how we can maintain them, how we can make them become a habit? And I think you kind of touched on that really with your lady, making a habit in the morning, in the evening.
Yeah, I think for me, it's about being consistent when it's easy.
Yeah.
It makes it much easier to tap into it when it's hard. So I think, when things are good, still be consistent, make sure that you are showing up for yourself and being consistent with those, what is a good habit for you, that is helpful to you, those habits and behaviors that are helpful. And I think that then becomes much easier to not have to think and put energy and effort into. We like the path of least resistance, don't we? So which is why sometimes we revert back to what's familiar, even if it's not what's needed. So I think that for me would be, the short answer to that question would be in just keep showing up daily, keep in these small things that and this is the challenge, isn't it? Because they feel so small that they feel that they're insignificant, but when the difference when you stop doing them. So yes, it feels like things feel better. So yes, you could ease off with it a little bit, but you will start to notice the difference. So keep those small sustainable changes consistent all of the time, because if you can keep that low level going, that actually then when something big does happen or something more challenging does happen, it's much easier to turn the volume up than it is to kind of completely start from zero. So yeah, I think that would be my advice.
And I think it's quite easy when you're in a good place and feeling positive to let go of the habits because you're feeling in a good place. But that's the time when you're in a good place to keep up with the habits, because then they will be there automatically for you when something not so good happens.
If these are the things that have helped you to be in a good place, why would you stop doing them? Which is what we do. It's a funny old human habit, isn't it? It's like, okay, well, it needed this to get me here. So if I stop doing that, what would happen? We'll end up back to where I was. So it is showing up consistently with those habits and behaviors that are helping you to be or feel who or what you want to be or feel. That started off really well in my head. It didn't come out quite as eloquently as it sounded, but I think you know what I mean.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think that's absolutely true. It's turning up, isn't it, all the time, and making that a daily intention is to turn up.
Yeah.
because we know it works. So therefore, as you said, why wouldn't we keep doing it?
Yeah.
It's human behaviour is so fascinating.
Yes.
So moving on to the last question, and I'm kind of really interested actually, because you said earlier on about, you're a very positive person. So what is it that you do personally that enables you to remain so positive, even in the times of adversity?
It's a great question, and I don't know that I would be able to put my finger on it. I think there is some element of when you've had some adversity or you've had some times that have been really difficult, it helps you to put other things in perspective. So I'm not talking about comparison with other people's problems and challenges, because I don't think that helps. You are facing what you're facing, and you feel what you feel, and that's you and yours, and that's them and theirs, and comparing, other people have it worse, or there's bigger problems in the world, doesn't change what you're facing and how you feel about it. So, but I think when you have faced other challenges and you know what you've overcome, there's some reassurance in that, okay, if I can get through that, I know that I've got what it takes to get through this. And I think it's not a comparison with other people. It's about you knowing what you have that will help you to get through this and out the other side. And I think that's probably what I tend to do, is I look for, okay, there's some reassurance that I've overcome things. So I might go back and think about, okay, what is this? Is this similar to something that I've overcome before? What did I do then that helped, and how might that help me now? I might look at things like, okay, what do I know that I have to get me through this? But also, what support do I have around me, or external support that will also help me to get through this? What will I know by the end of it? What will be different? Try and see past where I am at now and look at where I'm trying to get to. So that focus on not just keep that rechecking, not that I'm not focusing on the problem, that I'm focusing on a solution, because that for me helps me to feel like I'm in control and I'm doing something that is helping me to move forward. So I think that is really useful for me, is checking in with where I'm at with it, and knowing where I'm working towards, checking where my focus is, looking at who I am, what I know about me, what tools, resources have I got, where have I tapped into this before and made it work, but where might I need support from other people, and where I might need to ask for some help. I might need to check in and get people to, even if they can't take some of the weight of this problem, they might be able to take the weight of something else that means I can put what I need to into working something through. But I think just really focusing on the end. What will things be like when I am through this? What am I looking forward to? And actually, what might be different about me, or what might be different about life when I get there? And how can I make sure that there's some positive included in that, so I have something to really focus and look forward to? Because I think that's, being in a problem is very draining. So knowing that you're doing something about it helps. Focusing on what's in my control, so that I'm focusing on the solution, is probably a big part of that, I think.
I really like the idea of focusing on the solution and not the problem.
Yeah.
That I think is really helpful as a positive way of thinking, because in actual fact, the solution is the thing that's going to get you away from the problem, that focus, and focusing on the things that you can control. Because there's so much going on in the world now that we have no control over. People, we have no control over.
None at all.
That we do have control over, and I really like that.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I really like that you said is not just about understanding the internal resources, understanding you, but it's also looking outwards towards the external resources, because there are people there that would want to help,
Yeah.
be there for you.
Yeah.
And sometimes we forget to ask for that help,
Yeah.
because we internalize. Well, maybe that's just me, but I internalize things very much. So to ask for help.
I had this conversation just this morning, and I think that we can expect people to know when to offer help.
Yeah.
We could just ask for it. It would make things I think anybody who has a friend or family member who specifically asks for help with something, the person in front of them will jump straight at it, because that's who we are as people. We want to be able to help and support. But I think what we have a tendency to do is feel that people should know what we want need help with, and should be offering what they think we might need. And it doesn't, why are we making it difficult? Like, what you need help with, who might be able to help with that, you go and ask them. But I think also there is some pride, isn't there, sometimes, of reaching out for help. But ultimately, people like to help. People feel better when they help. It helps other people feel good and feel like they're contributing to your friendship or the relationship, of being able to step in and do that. And I know that's something that I've learned over the years of, if you are always the person who's offering help, but you never let people help you, you create an imbalance. And so you do need to be able to do that, even if you give them something else to help with, and you get hold of that problem, that's okay too.
It is, but I suppose there's some people that really want to fix the problem for you, and I think for me, I just want, perhaps, and I think our clients quite often maybe think that we are going to fix them, but in actual we learn that it's not us fixing them, it's them fixing them. Because we listen, active listening, picking up on signs and language. And I think when you're in a more of a sort of friendship relationship, it's different, isn't it? Because there is
we want to fix them. We want to make the problem go away for someone, whereas actually there is a huge value in just listening and let them talk it through and let them work it out for themselves. And I've said this in a live before, in a coaching session, I'm in coach state, I'm there to listen, ask questions. But in a friendship state, I'm like, right, let's roll in the sleeves up, let's get this fixed, because that's what you want to do. And that that's not always the best support that's not always the support that they are looking for. Sometimes people just want to rant and get it out of my system. And I think that very much goes back to that first question of letting people have that negative space to talk things through. And it's not for us to tell them to move out of it. It's not for us to try and help, try and change their perspective. We might be able to help them to see that there are different perspectives. But actually, if you've got somebody who wants to be in that negative space for a period of time with purpose, then that's where they need to be. Good loop round. Seamlessly done there. What fantastic questions, and amazing. I've really enjoyed the questions and the conversation, and I know that there is stuff in there within those answers that will be of use to people. So thank you so much. I will set this up so it's out on all of the platforms. So it'll be out on social media platforms. It will be out on podcast platforms too. We will link in your details so people can find you. Like, share, subscribe, do that thing that you're supposed to do so that you don't miss out. And if I can help, or if you think Jules can help, like we both mentioned, we do offer free consultation calls, free initial calls. Get in touch and let us see how we might be able to help you walk around that problem and find possibilities. Thank you, Jules. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
We'll be back again soon. New topic, new guest,
Yeah.
New conversation. Thank you, Jules. Take care.